Imagine your plane crashes in the freezing mountains. No rescue teams, no food, no way out. And the only way to survive is something you swore you would never do. This is the true story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, one of the most shocking survival stories in history. On October 13, 1972, a plane carrying a young rugby team took off from Montevideo, Uruguay, heading toward Santiago, Chile. There were 45 people on board, most of them students full of energy, jokes, and plans for the future. They had no idea they were flying straight into a nightmare. As the plane crossed the Andes Mountains, thick clouds surrounded the aircraft. The pilots believed they had already cleared the mountains and began their descent. They were wrong. Suddenly, the plane slammed into a mountain ridge at over 11,000 feet. The tail was ripped off instantly. The cabin tore apart. Screams filled the freezing air as the fuselage slid down the snowy slope like a broken sled. When everything stopped moving, silence took over. 12 people were dead. Many were severely injured. And the survivors were stranded in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. The temperature at night dropped to -30 degrees Celsius. They had no proper winter clothing, no medical supplies, almost no food. At first, they believed rescue would come quickly. Planes flew overhead during the first days. The survivors tried everything to be seen. They used lipstick to write SOS on pieces of metal. They waved fabric. They screamed at the sky. But the white fuselage blended into the snow. After 8 days, they heard a small radio inside the wreckage. The Chilean government had officially called off the search. The world believed they were dead. Hope almost died with that announcement. Food was gone. There was nothing left but a few chocolate bars and some wine. Then came the conversation no one wanted to have. The only source of protein around them was the bodies of those who had died in the crash. It was a horrifying decision, but it was a decision between certain death and survival. Slowly, painfully, they chose to live. Days turned into weeks. An avalanche buried the fuselage, killing more survivors. The air inside grew thin and suffocating. Still, they refused to give up. 2 of the strongest survivors, Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa, realized something terrifying. No one was coming. If they wanted to survive, they would have to cross the Andes themselves, without proper gear, without maps, without knowing which direction led to civilization. They fashioned sleeping bags out of airplane insulation. They wrapped their feet in scraps of fabric. And in December, after more than 2 months trapped on the mountain, they began to climb. For 10 days they hiked through snow, rock, and brutal winds at extreme altitude. Every step burned their lungs. Every night threatened to be their last. At one point they reached the top of a peak and saw only more mountains in every direction. But they kept walking. Finally, after 72 days since the crash, they saw something different. Green valleys, a river, life. They stumbled upon a Chilean shepherd who could not hear them across the roaring water. So they wrote a message on paper, tied it to a rock, and threw it across the river. The note explained everything in desperate handwriting. Rescue helicopters arrived shortly after. 16 survivors were saved. 16 out of 45. The story shocked the world when it became public. Many judged them for what they had done to survive, but most people slowly began to understand. Because when stripped of everything, comfort, certainty, rescue, the human instinct to live is stronger than fear, stronger than shame, stronger than anything. The Andes crash is not just a story about tragedy. It is a story about resilience, about impossible choices, and about how far the human spirit will go when survival is the only option. If you think you know what you would do in that situation, ask yourself again, because none of them thought they would survive either. Don't forget to subscribe.